Hey, welcome to our podcast. It's not all black and white.
My name is Cera. I'm black.
My name is Matthew. I'm white. This is the Interacial Couple Podcast, and this is episode numero uno from California. We made the great escape last week from Kenya. All of our stuff was put on a tuk-tuk, a little like three-wheeled, three-passenger taxi-like thing, piled high. You can see it on our on some of our social media. And it's amazing the way they managed to pack a refrigerator, a stove, mattresses, chairs, table, sofa.
Oh my God, are you going to go through the entire list?
Everything that we owned?
Yeah.
No, I won't. But
packed a lot of stuff.
We packed a lot of stuff on a little tuk-tuk and moved it to where we're storing it. And we took a couple of suitcases each and...
2 suitcases each, whatever we could fit in the 2 suitcases, we got with us here.
Yeah, and we even had to get a signed letter from the chief of police saying that we were allowed to cross county lines so that we could leave Nakuru and get into Nairobi County where we could catch our airplane.
Yep, and we took a charter flight organized by the State Department, and it took us 40-something hours to get here.
Yeah, in our little shack that we're staying in while we are self-quarantining. I have good news today, though. I'm feeling much better today after 5 airports, 4 stops, 4 countries. We were wearing masks and washing our hands a lot. And I found out today that I am COVID-free. So if you came into contact with me, not my fault. I feel totally absolved of anybody's COVID-19. I have been tested and I am COVID-free.
I felt there was a very high chance that we were going to get COVID-19.
You did?
In Ethiopia and in Germany. One was just because in Ethiopia, they
put like 500 people in a space like that felt like it was 100 square feet with 500 people.
Yeah, and then it was just like, excuse me, I thought we were in the middle of the pandemic, but no one seemed to care. We were so close to each other. Social distancing was not a thing.
But it's just kind of interesting to me when I think about the fact that when we were in Kenya boarding, people were pretty good about it. Not great, but it was the afternoon. People were saying goodbye to their families or friends or whatever and getting on this plane that was repatriating people around the world.
I have to say something about the plane. So when I thought it was a charter plane, I expected a very different plane. I thought we were going to have wine, there was going to be social distancing. I was expecting fast class.
You imagine that when the State Department repatriates people due to some kind of global pandemic, that it would be a special flight?
Correct.
And not like a Spirit Airlines flight out of Kenya?
It was Spirit Airlines has better customer service. They packed us.
They did. But people, when we were getting on, people were very careful, right? At least...
Yeah, in Kenya, people are careful.
People were careful, but I think since it was the end of the day and the flight left like 2 hours late and people felt like they were going to be missing their connecting flights because it was a total cluster. And then we got to Ethiopia. We had to randomly go through security again, but they literally packed us through this tiny, tiny little corridor. And everyone was just packed in, and then there were a few people who were in full-on hazmats with face masks and splash guards and whatever else, and they were like...
I saw them, they walked in, and I was like, oh. Yeah. I had, for a minute, because we were so, close up together, I thought, I forgot about the pandemic. And then I saw them, and I was like, Matthew, is there something I don't know about this virus that these people know? It was a little scary to see them dressed like that.
Which was it was smart. Not all of the other times, I don't think, but when they were so close. And that was the moment that if we're going to get it, this is the place. Because everybody is crammed in this tiny room, randomly going through security again, even though we already got checked in Nairobi twice. Because in Nairobi, you have to get checked when you come into the airport, and then again when you go onto the airplane. Yeah. And it was also, it was a charter flight by the U.S. State Department, And so everything was, you would have thought that
They would be smooth,
that
but
it would be smooth, and it wasn't. And then we were in ready. So that one was tough. And then we got to Germany, and you said you were worried in Germany, but there was plenty of room.
there wasn't a lot of people at the airport. But then I thought, we're in Europe. You know, this is where the pandemic was. You know, is like you was hitting like hearing in being in Africa, like that's the closest you know about like what's kind of happening in Europe, and I was worried.
Yeah.
And I was worried because we had so many hours at the airport. How many hours did we have? Like
7 hours.
7 hours of waiting, and I was like, I'm using the bathroom. We got coffee. You know, we were just walking around. We worked out.
Yeah.
We did a workout session because there was no one at the airport.
And what do you do when you're sitting at the airport after traveling? And we had 4 legs of our trip, and we had done 2 of them by the time we got to Frankfurt. So that was like we needed to stretch. We needed to work out together because, as we've talked about before, the couple that exercises together stays together, which was really valuable after when we found out that we were actually going to be able to catch a flight. That was on a Thursday after our flights the week earlier had been canceled. And so then we found out on Thursday we can go. We had Friday, most of the day Thursday, but really like Friday, Saturday, Sunday to pack. And Monday
and
we
Sunday we couldn't actually. Sunday was the day we planned to move.
But we couldn't move
because it just rained like crazy.
Yeah.
So, anyway.
And so there were these moments during those 3 days that, and this is kind of what we're going to get to in this episode, is those the challenging moments when you're thinking, oh my gosh, like there's so much to do. Who's doing what? We each felt overwhelmed. I'm sure we probably each felt like I'm carrying most of the burden around here. Like I'm doing the important stuff, and what are you doing?
I was actually doing the important stuff.
Yeah, see what I mean? So there were like a couple of times where we actually had to consciously say, well, we don't have to have a bad time doing this. Like it can be difficult, it can be stressful, but we don't have to let that control like the way we deal with each other.
True.
You know, and there were maybe 2 or 3 times where we actually had to acknowledge that this is not easy, and if we're not careful, we're going to slip into being angry with each other.
Yeah, we were just gonna fight the whole entire time.
Mm-hmm.
So.
When we moved to Kenya, we had 2 or 3 of those moments where it was like, I'm moving to Kenya with this person. Like, what am I thinking? This person is like crazy. And then I felt like a couple of those moments starting to come.
In Nakuru?
In Nakuru when we were moving out. Did you?
I did, especially when I organized the entire move, found the drivers, and then I went to the gym, and I gotten close to the people at our local gym in Nakuru, and I was sad we were leaving, and I just wanted to have like one last day of workout, and I came home 45 minutes late, and you were so annoyed.
Yeah, I was annoyed. I had cut my trip short to the gym because I knew we had so much to do. We were supposed to move that night first.
Yeah, but it was raining so much. I knew, like, just looking outside, like, we're not gonna move. Like, the gods have decided we're not moving today. So I was like, if I'm not gonna be packing my stuff into a tuk-tuk, then I'm just gonna spend time at the gym. But you were annoyed.
Yeah, there were a lot of moving parts, and we had an agreement when you were going to be home to help us move out, and then you just assumed that, well, we had an agreement, but it's not that important.
It's not like I decided it wasn't important. I think what my decision was, it was like more important to me to have kind of like a little bit of time with people that I've become close to in the last year. Mm-hmm. And that was important. That was more important to me than rushing to move.
Right.
And I should have communicated that, and I didn't communicate, but I made that choice. It was a choice that was made consciously.
For you, it was a conscious choice. And for me, it was I'm at home waiting for you, and there are decisions that had to be made that I didn't think that I was the best person to make all those decisions on my own.
Until then, I was doing most of the decision making.
No, we were working together, and then you had to, like, you know, your cousin knew the tuk-tuk guy, so therefore, who probably didn't speak any English. So therefore, yeah, you had to coordinate that, but that didn't mean that you were coordinating the packing. It didn't mean there were a lot of things that were going on.
coordinated the parking.
You did?
Yeah, I did.
Okay. So what did I? I was just there to
You
look
just
good.
sat
I was there to
there
look
and
good.
look cute.
Yes, right. Which is what I do most of the time. I sit there and I look cute. But you know, even when I look back, at the end of the day, we were even by having to move out on Monday morning, and there was a domino effect of like the great job you did of coordinating our first tuk-tuk. That guy completely didn't show up.
He got drunk and forgot.
He got drunk and forgot, so we had to find a new one. And then all of our helpers and employees were late showing up that day. So everyone was supposed to be there at 7 a.m. and people trickled in between 8 and 8:30 while we had an airplane to catch.
Yep.
Yeah. So, and we hadn't moved out the night before, so we also had the full moving out and loading of the furniture to do. At the end of the day, we made it to the airport with plenty of time because it turns out there's not much traffic in Kenya at the moment because you're not allowed to travel between county lines. So it was just a very few people with either with enough money to bribe the cops going through or with a letter like we had from the chief of police. So there wasn't a lot of traffic at the end of the day. We got there on time. But kind of going back to the point is that there were these agreements that we had and understandings we had. And then ultimately we also had different priorities at the end. Like to me, there's a priority of like knowing that everything was in order and that we were good to go. And then for you, the priority was getting to say goodbye and have a full workout session. And those were, I don't know if I can say one is right or wrong, but they were both like legitimate needs and they were both conflicting. And in that moment, I had a need and an agreement, and you had a different need and decided to change the agreement. While at the end it's okay, I think those are the places that often become like seriously challenging in most relationships that I mean relationships and other experiences that I've had. Those become the moments that can really set things off on, you know, on a bad trajectory. I mean, I'm not talking about like for an entire relationship or whatever, but in any given situation, like that could have really tanked really fast.
But it didn't.
It didn't, and we made it on time.